My time has come. I am going to the place of my fathers. There's something you must do for me. When I am gone, you must take care of Joab."
"I am Joab, commander of Israel's armies. For years, I have fought by King David's side. I stood with him through fire and blood, through his rise and his reign. I've done his bidding, carried out his hardest commands. I am part of his very legacy. And now you would betray me, King Solomon? Remember, I am your older cousin, bound by blood and by loyalty. Do not do this."
Who truly was this man, Joab? Was he a loyal servant? Or was his loyalty more complicated? How did he help King David? What battles did he fight? What secrets did he hold? And why, after all these years, would David ask his son Solomon to take care of Joab? Was this request meant for Joab's protection or his downfall? Could David, known as a man after God's own heart, really command such a fate for someone who had been by his side through thick and thin? And if so, why? In this episode of Bible Advantage, we'll delve deep into one of the most complex relationships in Israel's history. What lies at the heart of betrayal and loyalty? Who was the first to become disloyal, David or Joab? And how did such a strong alliance come to such a tragic end? Join us as we uncover the dramatic tale of David and Joab, their triumphs, their confrontations, and the final twist that left one man king and the other in the dust. And now, we want to hear from you. What do you think makes someone betray those they once held dear? Share your thoughts and comments. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with a friend. Give them the Bible Advantage today.
The story of David and Joab began when David was anointed as the future king of Israel by the prophet Samuel, while Saul was still king. This led to a complex power struggle, with David fighting to survive while Saul pursued him relentlessly. During this time, David gathered a band of loyal followers, including Joab and his brothers, who proved vital in his campaigns against Saul and other enemies. Joab was the son of Zeruiah, David's sister, making him David's nephew, together with his brothers, Abishai and Asahel. David's ascent from shepherd to king placed Joab in a privileged position, and his natural skill as a warrior quickly made him one of David's mighty men. As David's life was often at risk due to Saul's pursuit, Joab proved his loyalty by staying with David even when it was dangerous to do so. Joab's dedication to David was fierce, and he often displayed a pragmatic ruthlessness to protect David no matter what. When David became king of Judah, Joab was with him all the way. Cracks of Joab's loyalty to King David began when Saul was finally killed by the Philistines. Abner, the formidable general of Saul's army, in the depths of Israel's political chaos, had a face-off with Joab and his men. In the event of things, Abner, being a stronger and more experienced fighter, was approached by Asahel, Joab's brother. In spite of Abner's warning to Asahel to go fight with someone of his size, Asahel kept pursuing Abner till Abner was forced to thrust a sword into Asahel, leaving him in a pool of his blood. This enraged Joab against Abner on a personal and revengeful level. Abner, protecting all that his late master Saul left behind, initially aligned with Ishbosheth, Saul's son, to hold together Saul's fragile kingdom. Yet a bitter fallout with Ishbosheth changed Abner's mind, and he defected to David, offering an alliance that could unite all Israel under David's rule. Abner, proud and confident, arrived at David's court, extending the promise of peace and support from Saul's former allies. David eagerly welcomed Abner's proposition, seeing it as a path to finally end the long and bloody divide. But to Joab, Abner's sudden loyalty shift was an unforgivable affront, stirring up memories of his brother Asahel, slain by Abner's own hand. Joab's blood boiled at David's decision to make peace with the man he saw as a personal enemy. Though Abner came in peace, Joab saw only a chance for cold vengeance. With cunning deceit, Joab sent word to Abner, luring him back under the guise of a friendly meeting to solidify terms. But as Abner entered the shadowed corridor where Joab awaited, he sensed something amiss. Joab, cloaked in rage and betrayal, pulled Abner aside, and with a swift, brutal strike, plunged his dagger deep into Abner's abdomen. Abner's shock was matched only by his agony, as he realized he had walked straight into a trap. Joab's eyes burned with satisfaction, his act not only avenging Asahel, but sending a fierce message about loyalty and betrayal in the fractured kingdom. When David heard of Abner's death, he was deeply distressed. He had seen Abner's offer as a crucial step toward unifying Israel, ending the bloodshed between Saul's loyalists and his own followers. To David, Abner was not only a skilled commander, but a man willing to make peace for the good of the nation. But Joab's ruthless murder of Abner shattered this hope, threatening the fragile unity David was striving to achieve. David, grieving and angered, publicly condemned Joab's actions. In front of his court and the people of Israel, David declared his innocence, making it clear he had no part in the treacherous killing. He mourned Abner's death with a solemn heart, arranging a state funeral to honor him. David led the procession himself, tearing his clothes, weeping, and fasting, a public display of both sorrow and solidarity with Abner's supporters. David declared,
"Do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel?"
lamenting the needless loss of a man he had hoped would become an ally. David's response was not only personal, but also political. By openly condemning Joab and mourning Abner, he sought to prevent further unrest among Abner's followers and to demonstrate his commitment to justice and unity. Though he couldn't outright punish Joab, given Joab's powerful role and influence among David's men, David publicly cursed Joab's household, leaving the matter to divine justice. David's response emphasized his commitment to righteousness and his desire for peace, reinforcing his image as a just king even in the face of betrayal and conflict within his own ranks. Joab's loyalty, although wavering, still continued when David set his sights on Jerusalem as the new capital of Israel. Joab led the assault on the Jebusite stronghold. Jerusalem's strategic location and defensibility made it an ideal capital for the United Kingdom. Joab's military acumen played a vital role in the victory, securing his position as chief commander of Israel's army. Despite Joab's questionable actions, David consistently relied on him to lead critical campaigns. Joab's authority on the battlefield and the fear he inspired among Israel's enemies helped establish David's reputation as a powerful king, giving Israel a period of unprecedented dominance. Further role of loyalty occurred when King David had an affair with a married woman, Bathsheba. This situation shows Joab's complex allegiance to King David, even amid David's deceptive plans. This all started when King David saw Bathsheba bathing from the rooftop of his palace. Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite, a soldier in David's army, was beautiful, and David, overtaken by desire, summoned her to his palace, where they committed adultery. When Bathsheba later discovered she was pregnant, David found himself in a perilous situation, desperate to cover his transgression. Knowing that Uriah was on the battlefield, David devised a plan to call him back to Jerusalem, hoping Uriah would spend the night with Bathsheba, thereby concealing the origin of her pregnancy. But Uriah, bound by a strong sense of duty and solidarity with his fellow soldiers, refused to enjoy the comforts of home while his comrades were still at war, sleeping outside David's door instead. Frustrated, David then resorted to a darker plan. He sent a message to Joab, his loyal and steadfast military commander, instructing him to place Uriah at the front of the fiercest battle and then withdraw the troops, leaving Uriah exposed and vulnerable. Joab, though aware of the brutal implications, followed David's orders with unwavering loyalty, positioning Uriah where the fighting was heaviest. Uriah fought valiantly, but as David intended, he was slain. Joab's role in this tragic situation shows his unyielding commitment to David, even when the orders he received were morally questionable. Though Joab executed the command, it was not from a personal grudge, but from his deep-seated loyalty to David as king. Joab's loyalty was tested once again as King David grew older and more passive. One of his son Absalom began to become favorable with the people and later led to a rebellion of unfolded as a dramatic struggle for power and loyalty within Israel. It began when Absalom, ambitious and charming, began to win the favor of the people, subtly positioning himself as an alternative to David. Absalom stood at the city gates, greeting those who came to see David and speaking to them with promises of fair judgment and justice. Over time, he amassed enough support to declare himself king at Hebron, leading a full-scale rebellion against his father. When David heard of Absalom's revolt, he was devastated, not only by his son's betrayal, but also by the potential loss of his kingdom. Fleeing Jerusalem with his loyal followers, David sought refuge as Absalom took control. David's loyal commander, Joab, remained committed to restoring David's reign, despite the turmoil and division within Israel. This resulted in a face-off between David's forces and Absalom's army in a fierce battle. Joab led the king's troops with precision and determination. David had explicitly ordered his commanders to deal gently with Absalom, hoping to spare his son's life despite the rebellion. However, Joab had other plans of his own. In the thick of battle, Absalom was caught by his hair in the branches of a great oak tree, left hanging and vulnerable. When Joab saw him, he seized the moment, thrusting 3 javelins into Absalom's heart, killing him and effectively ending the rebellion. Joab's actions, though against David's command, were decisive and showed his fierce loyalty to David's kingship, even at the cost of ignoring David's personal wishes. Following Absalom's death, David returned to his throne, but Israel remained fractured. Not long after, a new threat emerged. Sheba, a Benjamite, led another insurrection, urging Israel to reject David. Sheba's revolt was swift, and he gathered followers as he moved north. David ordered Amasa, Joab's cousin, and the newly appointed commander of David's army, to quell the uprising. However, Amasa was slow to act, which angered Joab, who saw this delay as a risk to David's rule. In a brutal move, Joab took matters into his own hands. He approached Amasa under the guise of friendship, but in a sudden and violent act, he stabbed Amasa, killing him and taking back control of the army. With Joab now leading, the troops pursued Sheba to the fortified city of Abel. Joab surrounded the city, preparing for a siege. A wise woman from within the city negotiated with Joab, eventually arranging for Sheba's beheading to end the siege and save the city. Joab's actions demonstrated a fierce, almost ruthless loyalty to David's kingship, though it often conflicted with David's wishes. He disobeyed the king's command to spare Absalom, asserting his belief that David's rule was paramount and worth any cost, even familial bonds. Later, his murder of Amasa was a decisive, if brutal, act of ensuring swift action against Sheba. Joab's loyalty was not to David the father or friend, but to David the king of Israel. Joab's loyalty, even though to King David, had started straining with each situation getting worse. And so as King David aged, his strength and health declined, and there was uncertainty about who would inherit the throne. Although David had previously promised the throne to his son Solomon, he had not publicly declared Solomon as his successor. This uncertainty created a power vacuum, which Adonijah, David's son from Haggith, sought to exploit. Adonijah, known for his good looks and ambitious spirit, was confident that he could assume kingship due to his position as one of David's oldest surviving sons after the deaths of Amnon and Absalom. Seizing the opportunity created by David's frailty, Adonijah gathered support to proclaim himself king. He took advantage of the lack of a formal announcement from David and organized a ceremony near En-Rogel. He invited influential figures in David's court, including Joab, the commander of the army, and Abiathar, one of the high priests, to support his claim to the throne. However, he deliberately excluded Solomon, Nathan the prophet, and other loyalists who would have opposed his plans. Joab sided with Adonijah, likely motivated by his own ambitions and loyalty to the established military order. Joab may have seen Solomon's potential rise as a threat, given that Solomon was perceived as more spiritual and politically inexperienced. Joab's support for Adonijah provided military credibility and strength, solidifying Adonijah's claim to kingship and making his move more plausible. Abiathar, the priest, also supported Adonijah, perhaps believing that his long-standing service to David granted him the right to influence the succession. However, this put him in direct opposition to Zadok the priest, who remained loyal to David and Solomon. Their divided loyalties reflected the tension and uncertainty within David's court. When news of Adonijah's self-coronation reached Nathan the prophet and Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, they acted swiftly. Nathan advised Bathsheba to remind David of his promise that Solomon would succeed him. Together, they approached David, informing him of Adonijah's actions and urging him to fulfill his vow publicly to secure Solomon's position. Nathan's and Bathsheba's intervention highlighted the urgency of the situation, as without David's intervention, Adonijah's claim could solidify uncontested. Realizing the gravity of the situation, David acted decisively to confirm Solomon as his chosen successor. He instructed Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah son of Jehoiada to anoint Solomon at Gin. This was a significant public declaration, demonstrating that David, though frail, fully endorsed Solomon as king. The people celebrated Solomon's anointing with such enthusiasm that the city resounded with joy, drowning out Adonijah's feast and causing alarm among his supporters. When Adonijah and his followers heard of Solomon's anointing, they feared for their lives, recognizing that their attempt to usurp the throne had failed. Adonijah sought refuge at the altar, pleading for his life. Solomon initially granted him clemency, warning him to remain loyal. However, after further plots to claim the throne, Solomon eventually ordered Adonijah's execution. As for Joab, his previous actions against David's wishes and his alliance with Adonijah sealed his fate. King David gave the new King Solomon the order to execute Joab, ending his long and tumultuous career. Benaiah, a trusted soldier of Solomon's, carried out the sentence, marking Joab's demise as both a punishment for his disloyalty and a final purge of those who opposed David's wishes for Solomon's reign. Did this judgment against Joab by King David look like a betrayal of many years of Joab's loyalty? Or did all the cracks in Joab's loyalty over the years cause King David to make this decision? Let's hear your comments. As you like the video and subscribe to bring many more to Bible Advantage.